TV talent shows have been a major part of popular culture for decades. In the early 2000s, we had Pop Stars and Pop Idol, quickly followed by The X Factor, which made its debut in 2004. Then came Britain's Got Talent in 2007, which at the time of writing is still going strong in its 18th series. These shows have continually dominated primetime schedules and created global superstars. But before all of that, in the 1990s, there was one talent show with a difference that stood above the rest. A show that captured the imagination of millions and became one of the most loved entertainment shows of the decade, Stars in Their Eyes. Presented initially by Leslie Crowther for its first 3 series, and then by the incomparable Matthew Kelly for the majority of its run through the 90s and early 2000s, each week 5 ordinary members of the public would be transformed into their musical idols, where the best sound-alike would go through to the series grand final for a chance to be crowned champion. Stars in Their Eyes was all about celebrating the talent and passion of everyday people, giving them the chance to step into the shoes of legendary performers, even if only for one night. The show quickly became a Saturday night institution, drawing in millions of viewers each week and spawning a number of memorable performances, most famously Gary Mullin's extraordinary transformation into Queen frontman Freddie Mercury in 2000. And while every episode crowned a winner, the real joy came from seeing just how convincing each transformation could be. Running for an incredible 17 series, the show crowned many champions throughout the years. But in October 1999, a very special Champion of Champions episode was broadcast, which invited back all of the winners from the first 10 series of the show in search of the ultimate champion. And it's this special episode that's the topic of today's video, the second episode of the 90s Rewind. Before we start, remember to hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. Before we review the Champion of Champions episode of Stars in Their Eyes, a little background about the show. Stars in Their Eyes was based on the Dutch talent show Soundmix Show, which began in 1985 and ran for 18 series until 2002. Before the debut of Stars in Their Eyes, a pilot series was filmed in 1989, hosted by Chris Tarrant. Luckily, a few years ago, one of these unaired episodes surfaced online, giving us a glimpse into the early development of the show. As pilots go, it's nowhere near as polished and grand as the show would become, but overall it was actually quite fun to watch. It followed largely the same format that the main show would go on to use, although there were only 4 contestants per episode rather than 5, and there was no big reveal with the famous "Tonight Matthew," or in this case "Tonight Chris, I'm going to be." Instead, the contestant would just reveal who they were going to be, and then were taken over to a clothes rack to choose the outfit they would be wearing, which was a little strange. They would then walk through those famous doors and be transformed into their musical idol. This pilot episode actually features 3 contestants that we would see again in Series 1. Carol Barry as Alison Moyet, who would later appear in Episode 5, Sam Sereno portraying Tom Jones, who would book a place in the Series 1 Grand Final after winning Episode 3, and eventual Series 1 champion Maxine Barry as Shirley Bassey, giving us an incredible performance here in this pilot episode. After being commissioned for a full series, Leslie Crowther was chosen as host, and he presented the first 3 series of the show before his career came to a tragic end after being involved in a serious car accident in 1992. When it became clear that Crowther would be unable to return, the series producers then chose Matthew Kelly as his replacement. Kelly would go on to become the most iconic host of Stars in Their Eyes, presenting the show from 1993 until 2004, overseeing the show's golden era. His warm and enthusiastic hosting style helped cement the show as a Saturday night TV staple, and under his tenure, Stars in Their Eyes reached its peak in popularity, with millions tuning in each week to watch the contestants transform into their favorite music icons. After his departure from the show, Kat Deely, who had been presenting the kids' version of the show, took over hosting duties for the main show, but only one more series would air before the show was axed shortly thereafter. There was a brief revival in 2015 with a 6-part series hosted by Harry Hill, but this was again axed due to low ratings. But in this video, we're going all the way back to when Stars in Their Eyes was at the height of its popularity in 1999, to relive one of the most exciting and star-studded episodes in the show's history, the special Champion of Champions live grand final. The Champion of Champions episode was broadcast live on the evening of Saturday, October 30th, 1999. The show was split into two parts. The main show started its broadcast at 7:45 p.m. where we would see all of the acts perform, and then the results were announced live at 11 p.m. that evening, giving the public time to vote for their favorite act. This one-off event brought together all of the talented winners from the previous 10 series of the show, all competing for the ultimate title. With an incredible lineup of performances and a truly electric atmosphere, this episode perfectly captured everything that made Stars in Their Eyes such a beloved show, and watching it live really made it feel like a special, unmissable broadcast. Let's now take a closer look at the show and revisit some of the standout moments that made it so unforgettable. The episode starts with some dancing from the golden statues as Matthew Kelly is revealed standing in the middle of them. Matthew gives us a rundown of who'll be performing on tonight's show, more about each performer a little later, and is then transported to the studio where we get a quick introduction to some of the crew before the show gets started. We have a live orchestra in the studio for this one, and my word, there's no denying that this show had one of the greatest TV theme songs of all time. Matthew gives us a comedic rundown of the events of the past decade before welcoming his quote cyber babe sidekick Haley, the golden statue to the left of the scoreboard who's in charge of the important information, such as the numbers to call and the final scores at the end. Matthew also tells us that voting can be made on the show's website, something that was quite new for the time. Before each of our 10 performances, we get a short interview with each singer to find out what they've been up to since their success on the show. First up is the 1990 winner Maxine Barry singing as Shirley Bassey. We learn that since her win, she's gone on to have a very successful singing career, including starring on the show Legends in Blackpool and performing at various functions for heads of state and royalty. Maxine reveals that she'll be singing the song Goldfinger tonight, the song she won her first heat with, as it's always been a lucky song for Shirley, and she hopes it will be a lucky song for her tonight. Maxine then makes her grand entrance and puts on a cracking performance. She certainly sounds a lot like Dame Shirley. At the end of her song, she's joined on stage by Matthew, who gives her a specially commissioned silver trophy, which all of tonight's contestants will receive regardless of the final outcome. On to our second performer of the evening, Bernard Wenton, who won the 1991 series of Stars in Their Eyes as the incomparable Nat King Cole. Bernard talks about his shock at winning the series and how his life has completely changed ever since, leaving his job as a bricklayer and getting to do what he loves for a living. He then takes to the stage and gives an excellent performance of Cole's song Unforgettable. Bernard has an excellent voice. Unforgettable. That's what we are. Third to perform is the 1992 winner Amanda Normansell for her impersonation of Patsy Cline, and amazingly, she won the series that year at just 14 years old. Since then, she has recorded 3 albums, the latest of which won an award for Best British Country Album 1996. Amanda then enters the stage and performs the classic track Crazy. Just 3 songs in and the standard is already extremely high. Crazy. Before the first commercial break, we learned that over 1,000 people have already tried to call and vote, despite the lines not opening until after everyone has performed. Why did everyone always forget this? After the break, we're introduced to our 4th performer, Jackie Khan, who won in 1993 as Alison Moyet, another winner who has gone on to have a successful career as a professional singer. Another good performance here from Jackie, not an easy song to sing this one. Next, we have the first of 2 performers singing as Marty Pellow, John Finch, the winner of the 1994 series. Before his appearance on Stars in Their Eyes, John worked in an electronics factory, but after his win, he never went back and pursued his passion for singing. John also tells an amazing story that the day after he won Stars in Their Eyes in 1994, he got a call from the manager of Wet 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 who invited him to a private party in London where he got to sing with Marty Pellow himself. What an incredible experience that must have been. John walks out for his song, and I think this is one of the best lookalikes I've seen on the show. Of course, it's all about how close he actually sounds to Marty, and I think he does a pretty good job.
You hear it, so you feel it, and see how I try.
We've now reached the halfway point, and next up is the 1995 winner Lee Griffiths, portraying Bobby Darin. Lee tells us that his dream had always been to be a performer, and Stars in Their Eyes was able to help him do that. Since his win, he's performed all over Europe, living the life he always dreamed. Lee comes out and performs one of my favorite songs, Mac the Knife.
Oh, the shock, babe, had such steep depth, and it shows that early white.
Champion number 7, Paul Doody, is up next as our second Marty Pellow of the evening. Also now working as a professional singer, Paul tells us all about how his life has changed since winning the show. And for some reason, his video package has him walking down a beach on his own, going shopping in a hardware store, and removing wallpaper in his house. Absolutely no idea why they decided to have him do this for his video intro, but anyway, it's all about that voice, and if I had to pick, I'd choose him over the previous Marty Pellow. But they're both very good.
If you're there and you can, and you listen very careful, darling, you hear my prayer.
3 to go, and next it's the winner of the 1997 series, Faye Dempsey, as Olivia Newton-John. Another video package all about the time since her win, and then she comes out and delivers an incredible performance of the song Hopelessly Devoted to You. Definitely one of the best sound-alikes so far on the show, but it's all down to how well it will do in the public vote later.
Guess mine is not the first heartbroken. My eyes are not the first to cry.
The penultimate performance of the evening comes from the 1998 winner Jason Searle, who won as Neil Diamond by a margin of just 1,000 votes in an incredibly close grand final. As is becoming commonplace now with all of these winners, Jason quit his job after winning and now sings 5 or 6 days a week for a living, and at the time of the show was about to embark on a UK tour. Seems like a really nice, humble, down-to-earth guy, Jason, and his impersonation of Neil Diamond is absolutely spot on.
Hello again.
Last but certainly not least is the 1999 Stars in Their Eyes champion Ian Moore singing as Chris de Burgh. Ian won his grand final with almost 500,000 votes, which at the time was a show record. This would eventually be beaten by the incredible Gary Mullen as Freddie Mercury a few years later, but perhaps that will be a topic for a future video. Ian tells us that since his win, he's had the chance to meet Chris de Burgh himself and sit in as he records his new album, which must have been a surreal experience. Ian then takes to the stage to perform Lady in Red, and you could just tell that this was something different, an outstanding performance.
The lady in red is dancing with me, cheek to cheek.
After a quick commercial break, we come back to the studio briefly as Matthew reminds everyone of the performers and the numbers to call before the phone lines are opened. Matthew heads backstage to have a glass of champagne with the performers as the show goes off the air for just over an hour to give the public enough time to vote for their favorites. When we come back to the studio, we see there are a number of celebrities in attendance tonight, many of whom were interviewed as they arrived for the show. But enough of all that, it's time for the Stars in Their Eyes Champion of Champions to be crowned, as Matthew closes the vote, takes center stage, and asks Haley and Roy to bring up the scoreboard. I always love these vote reveals in the grand finals, incredible drama. First up, Shirley Bassey scored a grand total of 45,226 votes, followed by Nat King Cole with 33,385. Third champion Patsy Cline scored 62,494, putting her in the lead, and Alison Moyet unfortunately only scored 16,708. The first of our Marty Pellos scored a grand total of 29,361, but then Bobby Darin was able to secure 77,243 votes, taking the lead from Patsy Cline. This lead was only short-lived as Marty Pello number 2 was able to score a really impressive 95,469 to take the lead, but then Olivia Newton-John took the lead from him with an incredible 110,861 votes. The lead changes didn't stop there, however, as the 1998 winner Neil Diamond scored a grand total of 178,065, putting him on the edge of victory. Just one performer left, Chris de Burgh, the winner of the 1999 series, and I'll let Matthew take it from here.
481,525! And the Stars in the Rise Champion of Champions is Chris de Burgh!
With almost half of the total votes cast in his favour, Ian Moore as Chris de Burgh is crowned the Champion of Champions and appears in absolute shock at the result. Ian is awarded a special gold winner's trophy and is invited to perform the song one more time to close the show. The whole audience, as well as the other performers, swayed along to the ballad, and I think we can all agree that Ian was a very worthy winner and one of the most iconic performers in the history of Stars in Their Eyes. And that brings us to the end of our look back at the incredible Champion of Champions episode of Stars in Their Eyes. The show was a true celebration of music, giving ordinary people the chance to step into the spotlight and portray their favourite artists, bringing us some unforgettable performances that will live on in TV history. For so many of us, Stars in Their Eyes was a Saturday night tradition, the kind of show that brought families together in front of the TV, cheering on their favourites and created some truly special moments. And even decades later, it remains, I feel, one of the greatest TV entertainment shows of all time. Many thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more nostalgic deep dives into classic 90s TV. I'd love to hear your memories of Stars in Their Eyes in the comments below, and if you have any ideas or suggestions for future episodes of the 90s Rewind, please let me know. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.